Joining me now, Fox News senior strategic analyst General Jack Keane. General Keane, the senior White House official said the president was speaking in jest there, but your thoughts about his comment and the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, I agree with, the statement his own officials have made. And I mean, the president has made similar statements about aspirational goals and getting the Panama Canal back under our control and other things. Listen, where are we here? Let's unpack it a little bit for our audience, because we're clearly in a different phase. We went to a ceasefire on April the 7th after 38 days of military operations. It had 14 days to go. And we gave up finishing those military objectives because our priorities essentially changed. And why was that? Well, the Iranians took control of the Straits of Hormuz and shut it down on March the 2nd. And we were living with that for a month. And therefore, our priorities in terms of economic priorities, oil and gas prices, political priorities dealing with the upcoming midterm elections became paramount. And that's why we went to the ceasefire. The Iranians were offering, Kayleigh, a negotiated deal over the Straits of Hormuz. And of course, we know even when they signed a deal with our president, that blew up in our faces. So the diplomatic phase that we entered into as a primary objective really hasn't worked out very well. But we, on April the 13th, obviously a week after the ceasefire, to help with that diplomatic phase, we put in a naval blockade. And that put huge economic pressure on the regime, but not enough pressure on them to obviously make a deal that they're willing to comply with. So now we're in an increased economic phase. Secretary Bessent is imposing every possible economic restraint that he can impose externally on this regime. And it's quality work that he and his team are clearly doing. So the objective here is to mount as much economic pressure on the regime as possible in the upcoming weeks, knowing full well that the military is in place. The Israelis are at full magazine depth, and Admiral Cooper, CENTCOM forces in the region, we actually have more capability now in the region than we had when we began the war on February the 28th. So that obviously is on standby. I think what will likely happen here, we have to be prepared for the Iranians to make another miscalculation, Kayleigh. And what do I mean by that? Because I think as we get closer to the midterms, they're going to think that if they conduct some aggressive, violent acts against U.S. bases or allies in the region, we won't do anything about it because the midterms are coming, and that would sort of poison the well in terms of the election itself. President Trump will respond if Iran takes that kind of action, in my judgment. So we'll see what happens over the next several weeks as the economic pressure builds. Where the Iranians are in their heads, they believe they can ride this out economically. That's where they are. And we have to understand that. And we're 4 months into this kind of economic pressure already. And they obviously have not relented or even been willing to go into any serious negotiations that they're willing to comply with. So it remains to be seen what's going to happen over the next several weeks here.
General Keane, I want to ask you about another situation that's been playing out in the media, and that's the deployment of the USS Abraham. The president and others have been critical of the media for talking about this issue because, after all, these are U.S. service members. They're deployed. However, it's been a long time, 266 days deployed, 200 days in a combat zone. The statement from the acting Secretary of the Navy says they will return home soon for part of a planned rotation. Your thought? These are very hard decisions for a commander-in-chief to make, and these are very big sacrifices that our troops are making each and every day.
Yeah, well, they certainly do, and they're trained and they're disciplined. And when they're doing something like this, and they know the significance of it, morale is very good. There's a sense of purpose and meaning in what they're doing. They obviously would like to be on a normal rotation, but this is not a normal rotation. This is war. I mean, our troops were in Iraq and Afghanistan for 12 months and 15-month tours, and the Navy was supporting that. And now the Navy and our air power, but the Navy's deployed and more isolated than our air power is certainly, and they certainly can deal with that. CENTCOM commander just left that ship, the Abraham Lincoln, by the way, and he said it was very, very impressive seeing the quality of what is happening there in the troops themselves. And I think they've taken a couple of incidents that we always have. Listen, there's always stress on our troops, and some of them do need counseling as a result of that stress. I mean, this is not normal in terms of the pressure that's on a human being here. So that takes place routinely. But the idea of people that diving off these ships and committing suicide, that's just not the facts. And they're taking a misinterpretation of them and sensationalize them. And that's really unfortunate because it's insulting to the troops who are out there and the performance that they have turned in here and will continue to turn in.
Yes, and while the acting secretary said there have been some mental health issues, there has been no loss of life, and we pray for our service members every day during their deployments. General Jack Keane, thank you so much.